Amen. So we said that we find ourselves here in the culmination of the birthday of the Rebbe Rashab, Rav Shalom Dovber of Lubavitcher, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe that earned the title of the Rambam of Hasidus, the Maimonides of Hasidus. He went and he put all the teachings of the Pnimius of HaTorah into a very systematical methodological teaching, so that we can sit down today and literally go through the most greatest of the depths of the secrets of the Torah and enjoy these secrets, because he went and did all the groundbreaking and all the footwork, all the intellectual work. He is the one that founded, as we mentioned before, the Chabad Lubavitch Yeshivas, Tomchei Tmimim, all the branches all over the world, which brought about the innovation of merging between the revealed facets of the Torah, the study of the Talmud, and the inner essence of the Torah, the study of Hasidic philosophy, in one yeshiva. And this being part and parcel of the Seder, the order of this study in the yeshiva. There are many, many things that we can go on and talk about. Like we said, the Rebbe has brought forward a soul request, a request from the depths of his soul, that each and every one of us try to find ourselves. That's a picture of the Rebbe Rashab. Thank you. To my wife Esther, these Kuntras Etz Chaim, that each and every one of us make the effort where it is possible to be able to go and to find ourselves within the Daled Amos, within the structure, the building of Tomchei Tmimim, wherever it might be found in the world. As we mentioned before, whoever doesn't have this ability or possibility, it can be done from distance. Today, it can be done online, as I was telling the stories from before, and as we'll be hearing the short stories here tonight before our Dvar Malchus Shir. The first story that was brought is a story that the Rebbe Rashab himself, as a young lad of 4 or 5 years old, as it's recorded in Hayom Yom, heard from his Melamed, from his teacher in Cheder. And when he came home, so he was crying terrible tears. And when his grandfather Tzemach Tzedek asked him why he's crying, why is he weeping, so he answered that in the Cheder, right, at school, so the Melamed taught that, and this is actually connected with last week's parasha of Vayera, the Melamed taught that Vayera elav havaya be'elonei mamre, that Hashem revealed himself to Avraham Avinu at Elonei Mamre, where he was sitting at the opening of his tent. And the Tzemach Tzedek asked, and so why does this bring you to tears? So he said, I want to understand, why is it that Hashem went and revealed himself to Avraham Avinu, but to me, he doesn't reveal himself? With the greatest of sincerity and innocence, this was the reply of the Rebbe Rashab at the age of 4 or 5, and it was with the greatest of sincerity. He really meant what he was saying. And this is the first story that we come and we understand. And the Rebbe mentions among the conclusions that we are meant to learn from this story, one of the major conclusions is that every single one of us should be striving to reach this level of innocence and sincerity, to the extent that it'll bring us to tears in regard to the fact that Hashem isn't revealing himself on a revealed basis to our eyes of flesh and blood, as he revealed himself to Avraham Avinu. By the way, the reply of the Tzemach Tzedek to his grandson was, it's a famous reply. The Tzemach Tzedek answered, when a Jew, a tzaddik, when a Jew, a tzaddik, comes and he to the realization that he has to circumcise himself at the age of 99, he deserves that Hashem should reveal himself to him. Okay, we won't get into the nitty-gritty, the details of this reply. There are many understandings behind what the Tzemach Tzedek said, but coming and bringing this to our senses, to our logic, what does this mean for us? We're talking about a young lad of 4 or 5 years old, but nevertheless, this child is in the future. He's going to be the next Lubavitcher Rebbe, or in 2 generations after his father. So we're talking about a very special neshama over here, a very special soul, despite the fact that he was still in his youth. And when we're talking about the soul, we're talking about where he was being reared, where he was being educated, in the circle of his grandfather, the Tzemach Tzedek, and his father, the Rebbe Maharash. He had all these things going for him. And nevertheless, this story, the Rebbe says, was told, it was revealed to the ears of the public, not only in the circle of the Rebbe's family. It's a cute story to tell by the Shabbos table. Shalom Dovber, he came home crying, and why was he crying? Because he didn't have the understanding that Hashem reveals himself to Avraham Avinu, doesn't reveal himself to him. No, it was made public to each and every one of us. And therefore, the Rebbe says, this is an instruction to us that it is incumbent upon each and every one of us to strive towards this level, and literally to break out in tears due to the fact that Hashem has not revealed himself to our eyes. And obviously, the Rebbe comes and connects this with the time that we're all working for and waiting for, the Geula Shlema V'Amitis, the true and the complete Geula, where this will be a living fact, that Hashem will reveal himself to us. In continuation to this, there was a story of, I myself also have experiences going out and making house visitations in the different kibbutzim all over Eretz Yisrael, mainly in the north, in the Galil, all the way down to Beit She'an. Coming into these kibbutzim, there are still kibbutzim, and basically this is the outside spirit, even though inside everyone really not only respects and honors these house visitations, but they're craving to have someone come and visit them. But on the outside, you come to a kibbutz, there's a big yellow gate, electric gate, and you don't even know how to get in until another car comes in back of you, and someone calls up in order to have the gate open. Then you finally have access to the kibbutz. You come to the kibbutz, you have the family name, you ask where this family lives, you come knocking on their door, and they open the door, and whoa, they see the man in black, the beard, the hat, everything. And they don't understand, like, where did you find us from? How did you arrive to our home? They don't even remember that they gave their names for the birthdays of the father, the mother, the children, and we're coming to make a house visitation in honor of their birthdays. Okay, so such was the visitation by one of the shluchim. He came to the kibbutz, he came to the home, knocks on the door. The person looks at him and he says, we don't usually have people like you, the way you look, walking around over here. What kind of spirit, hovers over the kibbutzim. So he says, yeah, but it's your son's birthday, and we came to celebrate. So finally, they're allowed into the to pass the threshold and sit down inside. And well, when they finally have the ability to go into talk, so what's the first thing that comes into a shliach's mind to talk about? They want to talk about Mashiach. But if you're talking about Mashiach, where do you start? What do you say? What will be the trigger for someone from this background in a kibbutz like, of the such? So this shliach that came to visit, he looks at the, he had a few children sitting by the table as well. They came to they came to see the they came to see the show. These people dressed in black. They're looking like penguins, black outside, white inside. So the shliach asks one of the kids, "What is it that you want the most in life? What is it that you've been thinking about and you've been dreaming about that you want the most?" And he wanted to go and to lead him toward the concept of Mashiach. The young boy, again, not even bar mitzvah. He thinks for a moment, and he has no problem, because apparently this has been bothering him for a long time. He looks at the shliach and he says, "You know what I really, really would like? I've been wanting this for so long." And the shliach says, "What?" So he says, "I want to see Hashem." He says, "What?" He says, "Yeah, I want to see Hashem." And the shliach is going out of his mind. Like, you couldn't get a better introduction to explain about Mashiach and how he was thinking about going and saying how all the delicacies will be abundant at the times of the Geula of Mashiach and so on. But to come to such an intricate and incredible point, which is that at the time of the coming of Mashiach, so Hashem is going to be revealed to every single person. Every single Jew will see Hashem with our eyes of flesh and blood. He didn't think that he would have such an incredible introduction like we just said. Going on, there's a famous story, again, coming and stressing the importance of stories in each and every one of our lives. It's a story going back to Rabbi Yisrael of Ruzhin, the Ruzhiner Rebbe. And it's told that there was a chassid that was sent in order to go into, he was on a shlichus, and he was sent to Rabbi Yisrael of Ruzhin, a Lubavitcher chassid from those times. And when he arrived, so he was there in order to go and to give regards, not even to go in for yechidus, but to go in to give regards from the Rebbe of those times. And he's standing there, and he's taking in the atmosphere. Now, besides himself, there were another two individuals that were standing on line, and they were there for individual purposes. Each of them, though, wanted to have the same thing. They wanted to give in a book that they compiled. Okay. Now, the head assistant of the Rebbe of the Ruzhiner Rebbe, of the Rabbi Yisrael of Ruzhin, went and he told the Ruzhiner Rebbe that these two individuals are standing outside and they want to give in their books. And the Rebbe said, "Fine." So they gave in their books, and as they're standing there, so the Rebbe, the Rav Yisrael of Ruzhin, called in the first book that he handled was a book of stories. The second book was a book of very deep Torah teachings and Torah thoughts from the Talmud and from the and it was like not for the average layman to sit down and to study. Rav Yisrael of Ruzhin took the first book, which was the story book, and he called in the author, and he was looking through the book. He gave the author blessings, and then the next person came in. This was the scholar that wrote the book of Torah teachings. He went through the book of the scholar, and he went through very quickly, like thumbed through it. But the thumbing through of Rav Yisrael Ruzhin was basically taking in the entire contents of the book. The previous book, the Rav Yisrael Ruzhin sat down and he literally went through and he was reading every page, and he was really taking in every single story in that book. When he was through with the second book, with the Torah teachings, the deep Torah teachings, he also gave blessings to the author of the book, and he sent him on his way. Then, and all this, the Chassid, the Lubavitcher Chassid, is standing on the side. If I'm not mistaken, it was not just a Chassid, but I believe it was Rav Isaac of Hommel. Rav Isaac of Hommel that was there, and he was sent by the Rebbe in those days. And he's taking in everything that's going on. Now, the Rav Yisrael Ruzhin, his assistant, comes in and he says, I don't understand what went on here. There was a great Torah scholar outside who wrote this book of chidushim, of innovations in the teachings of the Torah, and then there's this Yid who he seems to be more of a simple person, and he compiled a book of stories, and you preferred to take him first. And not only did you prefer to take him first, but you also went through very thoroughly, much more thoroughly than you went through the second book. You went through the first book of stories. How can one be compared to the other? Rav Yisrael of Ruzhin smiled and he answered to the assistant. He said that the storybook, although it's stories, first and foremost, you should know the value of a story. The value of a story is not only to go and to give the education of something that happened, but it imbues within the individual the ava and yira, the love for Hashem and the reverence for Hashem. And it does it in a very exclusive manner, in a manner that it literally it bypasses the nefesh habamis, the animal soul, and is able to go directly to the godly soul without the animal soul interrupting, because the animal soul enjoys to hear the story. And therefore, it's something which is basically involving the majority of the Jewish nation, who are not great Torah scholars and teachers and learned in the Torah, but the majority, which are the average layman and the simple Jews. And this is why I gave it much more interest and much more attention, as opposed to the Torah teachings of this great scholar, who obviously I do not belittle his Torah teachings, but his Torah teachings are only available to the ones that are learned. Only those have the ability at the moment to sit down and to access these teachings. And even after they access and study the teachings that are compiled in this book that he went and he compiled, it doesn't necessarily promise that this will trigger their love and their reverence and fear for Hashem. Because a person can remain a great scholar without involving himself with the intimate connection with Hashem, the love for Hashem and the appreciation and the reverence for Hashem's existence. And this is something that we see, again, the greatness and the value of a story. The next story, again, another short story, was in Tomchei Tmimim Yeshiva itself. In Tomchei Tmimim, in the dormitory, here in the yeshiva in Tzfat, there was a room of a few boys, different shiurim, different ages, and one of the older boys saw that one of the younger boys, and we're not talking about younger, we're talking about everyone in the yeshiva there is age 17, 18 and over, So he saw that one of the younger boys wasn't uh, wasn't uh, wasn't practicing a custom that is customary by Lubavitcher Chassidim, and we know that this is uh, this is a custom which involves the talis cotton, the tzitzis that we wear underneath our garments. So it's customary to tie the tzitzis with a tzitzis bundle, either with an elastic band to put it around the tzitzis, so that the tzitzis will literally be wrapped and closed to our tighter in wrapping our bodies, so it will be considered a garment and not just open the way that many people wear the talis cotton, the tzitzis. And he saw this younger boy wasn't practicing this. Instead of going and rebuking the yeshiva student, so he went and he told him a story. And this is the following story. He said that in the times of Tomchei Tmimim in Russia, so the boys didn't necessarily have a proper dormitory for living accommodations. So different students lived in the homes of different people. And such was also the case in regard to his grandmother, that they had in their home boys that were living in one of the rooms as a dormitory room, but it was for the yeshiva students of Tomchei Tmimim. Then it was very difficult and challenging, treacherous days. And one night, in the middle of the night, so they hear the knocking on the door, and the secret police, they storm open the door and they say to his grandmother, "We know that you're harboring yeshiva students, and you know that this is something forbidden, and we are putting all the yeshiva students on under arrest. We demand to know where the yeshiva students are." They basically knew exactly where they were also. Apparently they had inside information. They went into the room and they gathered up 5 out of the 6 students, and they arrested them. They took them to the secret police. And then the grandmother looked around and she saw that the one student that they left behind broke out in terrible tears. He was crying. And she ran over to him and she asked him, "What are you crying about? They only took the 5 other boys. They didn't arrest you. So you should be happy. Maybe you're crying for them." He said, No, you have it all wrong. Of course I'm crying for them that they were arrested, but I'm basically crying for me. And she says, "But you weren't arrested." And he says, that's exactly the point. You see, how did the secret police know who are yeshiva boys of Tomchei Tmimim and who aren't? They had a very accurate description, and they knew exactly what to look for. And they had all the details of what a yeshiva student from Tomchei Tmimim looked like, to the last detail, even to the tzitzis bundle, even to that the elastic band, or it could be even tying a material, a piece of a material rope. They had the last detail to the tzitzis bundle. And so she says to him, he says, "Those cursed secret police, they looked at me and I went to sleep and I didn't tie my tzitzis bundle. I forgot to put the tzitzis bundle and tie it around my tzitzis. Those cursed policemen looked at me and they didn't recognize me as a student in Tomchei Tmimim. Why? Because I forgot to put on my tzitzis bundle, my tzitzis tie before I went to bed." And for this he was crying, that there was a short period of time in his life that people didn't recognize him. The world didn't recognize him as a student of the Rebbe, as a student in Tomchei Tmimim. Now, after he told this story, he went downstairs, and during the day, all of a sudden he sees on the luach modaot, on the bulletin board, he sees a very nicely printed note. What's on the note? On the note is that there is a gemach. One of the boys in the yeshiva opened up a gemach. Gemach is basically interest-free loans, but today it's anything that you need, that people need and are offering for free. So this particular bacher offered the service of enabling boys to have tzitzis bundles, because he brought an entire package of elastic band and he had a pair of scissors. And the first thing that this young boy that heard the story of this other yeshiva student's grandmother did was to run out to the shop, buy an entire package of elastic band, and make himself a tzitzis bundle to wrap his tzitzis around his body. Now he wrote downstairs that he opened the gemach so that anyone that is in need will be able to get his tzitzis bundle from him. The boy that we mentioned before, that wasn't practicing this custom of tying a tzitzis bundle around his tzitzis yet. So when we're talking about going and having something literally influence and enter our minds, our hearts, the inner feelings, the inner essence of every single one of us, and doing it in a manner that it's educating us beyond any understanding. Because if we come and we talk to a person directly, so the person many times will be in a rebellious mood, or they won't want to listen because they don't want to hear criticism, even if it's constructive criticism. But when we're telling a story, so all of a sudden, all the pieces of the puzzle come in front of our eyes, and we have the inner urge to go and to emulate what we just heard in one way or another. And this is the importance and the greatness of a story in Judaism in general, and specifically stories that are told of tzaddikim, especially stories that are told of the Lubavitcher Rebbeim, and of Pnimius Torah, the inner essence of Torah. Like we said, a Mosai ka osimar, when will Sir Mashiach come? This was the question that the Baal Shem Tov HaKodesh asked Mashiach, and Mashiach answered, when your wellspring spread forward, and they spread forth. And this is the specific way that the Rebbe stresses. How do we spread it forth? Not only, first and foremost, obviously, sitting down and learning Chassidus, learning Tanya, learning Chassidic Maimorim, Chassidic discourses, learning the Dvar Malchus, but specifically through telling stories. Yishar Koach Yechi Adonenu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu HaMelech Ha'Moshiach Li'olam Voed.